But unless you can create a supply of new square footage on the market, that's really the only option you have. And the advantage of being vertically integrated is looking at opportunities holistically and deciding when it makes sense to build and when it makes sense to acquire existing property. And we're in that position. And for us, doing a ground up deal versus acquiring an existing deal are both, number driven decisions. And only when it makes sense to do one or the other do it.
Your network is your net worth. Come listen to some of the most successful people I know share invaluable knowledge, stories, and advice in real estate, business, and beyond. This is Weiss Advice. Whether you want to take your business or personal life to the next level, look no further. Welcome back to Weiss Advice. I am your host, as always, Yona Weiss, and it gives me great pleasure to have a wonderful guest here all the way from Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina area, Abraham Wanhi. He is the CEO and founder of Abranova Real Estate Company. Incredible what you guys are doing, vertically integrated construction company, developing multifamily properties. Let's jump right into it. What's going on, Abraham? Tell me what's good today.
Thanks, Yana. I'm excited to be on your show today. So Abranova vertically integrated basically means we're a fully capable, licensed construction company. And, we execute on projects basically on the construction side. And we also self-perform the site work and the concrete trades, which are, some of the most volatile and expensive trades in any ground up project. So typically, a general contractor would mostly outsource a lot of the trades, if not all. Most general contractors actually don't self-perform anything. So not only are we vertically integrated in the sense that we're licensed general contractors and we're construction managing on projects, but we're also self-performing two of the major trades on a project.
That's interesting. I never really thought about that, the efficiency of doing that. And you guys, as a construction management company, you're building your own properties as well, meaning you're a developer. Is that correct?
Correct, yes. So we're a developer. All the projects that we're currently building are projects that we currently own. And so in that regard, yes, we're very, very vertically integrated developers.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. That's like full hands-on, right? All hands on deck. Yeah. A lot more control.
Absolutely. Not, all the control you could ask for in a project, really. And, that's coming out in a lot of different advantages. Like my background is in construction management. I worked for a large general contractor, national general contractor, before I founded the company. And, I know the kind of inefficiencies that are associated with not just that company in particular, but the industry as a whole. It's a very archaic industry, and my inspiration to found Abranova was based on the experience working there.
Gotcha. But before you did that, I mean, you actually did a little engineering. Is that right? You had a little background in education in engineering.
Yeah. So I graduated with a mechanical engineering degree from Duke University. And I then went to, general contracting, construction.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, in a way, the construction world, as a working for a general contractor, as an engineer, there's a lot of advantages. I didn't realize going into it that many construction companies are not necessarily engineering companies. General contracting is a whole different industry on its own. There's some schools that have general construction management majors. I didn't even know that. So, but certainly construction and engineering, in my opinion, they go hand in hand. There's a lot of engineering decisions that go in there, and at that point, a lot of value engineering decisions that have direct implications on the financials of a project. So that's why I saw that as with development as one thing.
Gotcha. So it sounds like you had an interest in real estate before you even, started. Meaning you went into the engineering aspect and the construction company, aspect. But where did that come from? Did you have a background in real estate, anything beforehand? Like you had any involvement in that, or how'd you stumble upon, make this, you're learning about construction and engineering, and then just jumping in and founding your own construction management and vertically integrated development company?
Honestly, I don't think I looked at those two as different. Growing up, my credits to my father for being the great man that he was. He had, a construction company at some point in his life, and he had, a lot of properties.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically just associated, real estate properties with the ability to build them.
Got you.
So I never looked at real estate and construction as two separate things. But after now that I look back and talking to people, I realize it was just an inherent advantage I had, and thank God to my parents.
Absolutely. So let's go back a little bit. Can we jump back in time a little bit? You didn't grow up in the United States, right? You grew up, and you said your father had a construction company and doing that. Where exactly was that? Where were you from before you immigrated to the United States?
I grew up in Tanzania. It's in East Africa, and both my parents were entrepreneurs. They taught me that business is part of life. I never really differentiated between life and business and family. It was kind of all intertwined into one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so my father had many types of businesses as well. So in that regard, I also never kind of had a distinction between one career path versus another. You just own companies, like just on the trading business, then you're in the lumber business, then you own a hotel, and then you have rental properties, and then you have a shipping company. I mean, why not? Right? So
yeah, just
I think
keep it going.
The environment, my parents, I kind of prepared me for what I'm doing today. And again, every time I look back, I realize it was just a great part childhood that I had, and I thank God for my parents.
That's incredible. Yeah, I mean, it really does instill whatever you have in your childhood growing up. Those things are instilled with you, and like you said, it seems natural. Right? It just seems like, oh yeah, you see your parents doing something's natural. I mean, sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's not so good, and we need to
right. Yeah. So you got to find your blind spots too, right? And kind of work on those and realize the advantages and really hone on those and double down on those advantages, because you realize that not everybody had the benefit of looking at life like that.
Yeah. So now that you fast forward to today, you're doing construction projects. You're currently developing some multifamily properties in in North Carolina. Tell me about one of those projects. Like, what's the goal behind that?
So I'll tell you about the NovaRTP project, which we have been working on for maybe about 2 years, including the design phase and locking in the land and everything. It's ground up multifamily it was built to sell initially, and now it's kind of it fits in the built to rent category, even though we're selling it. But without going into the specifics, we're seriously considering a takeout offer to sell the whole project to a built to rent group. So that is a combination of 46 townhomes and 37 apartments, a total of about 170, maybe 180,000 square feet. And we're building that from ground up. And,
right.
We're self-performing the site work and the concrete trades. And, it's a very, very exciting project. I mean, I've had a lot of fun putting everything together, basically from scratch. But we have another project that's going to break ground this year that we just acquired the land for, and so it's not a small project. The NovaRTP, the exit, maybe about 28 million, in that range, and the one that Nova at Summer Meadow is another multifamily project that we're gonna start construction on. It's the exit may be anywhere between 18 to 21 million. And we feel best positioned to execute ground up deals. Just by the very nature of who we are as a vertically integrated developer.
That's great. Listen, I mean, I know a lot of multifamily and real estate investors in general, right? That's who I work with. These are the people I talk to day in and day out, and very few of them have the advantage of having the ground up construction. So, I mean, why do you feel like the advantage of ground up construction as opposed to just investing in real estate, buying existing properties? What do you see as the biggest advantage in doing that? It's obviously a much longer process, so you're in it for a much longer term period, right? But tell me, because a lot of our listeners are real estate investors, and so
Right.
I know for a fact a lot of you listening, right? You invest in real estate, whether it's multifamily, single family, self storage, you name it. But what a lot of you are doing are investing in existing properties, and every existing property comes with it, all of the advantages and also the problems that
Right.
that come with all the years. So, Abram, maybe talk a little bit about why such a great advantage in focusing specifically on the ground up development.
There are many advantages. I have to say, the good example right now, the market is very hot for multifamily, especially if you're looking to buy an existing property. You probably are going to buy it, in the 4 to 4.5% cap rate. And some people are making these acquisition decisions, I think, not solely because it makes sense number wise, but they have to. Either they've raised capital on the pref and they have to deploy it, or they don't get to make anything. So
right.
For me, I just don't see. I would be in a very difficult position if I had to make that choice because it doesn't make sense number wise. Right?
Meaning investing, from a
buying a building at 4% cap, like, doesn't make any sense to me at all. But unless you can create a supply of new square footage on the market, that's really the only option you have. And the advantage of being vertically integrated is looking at opportunities holistically and deciding when it makes sense to build and when it makes sense to acquire existing property. And we're in that position. And for us, doing a ground up deal versus acquiring an existing deal are both, number driven decisions. And only when it makes sense to do one or the other do it. So we have that advantage that developers who are not vertically integrated do not have.
Gotcha.
On top of that, being real estate and construction is intimately connected, because when you're looking at construction trends and seeing what the new supply is on the market, what the price of construction materials are telling you about what the future is like. Not that you need to actually have a construction company to make sense of those things, but it's that much more real,
right,
when you're dealing with subcontractors and material suppliers on a day-to-day basis. What that means in the pipeline of real estate on the market. If prices are high and brokers are having a hard time finding properties for their clients, that's a really hot market, and you have an upper hand in that sense if you can build at a good cost, and the market is in your favor. So it just makes us really, really comfortable. Like, we're able to transition between the real estate world and the construction world, and making sense of that data and in real time, and making decisive moves based on that. I think it's a really good place to be.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the current state, which I'm sure you're aware of, that there's a lot of things like lumber, for example, has skyrocketed the price. Right. How is that affecting your numbers? I mean, you started a ground up project with certain numbers in mind, and then the market is changing certain cost of materials.
Yeah, it's just the nature of the beast. We're not immune to those market trends. both, macro and micro in our local markets, but we're also better positioned to deal with them better than, a traditional developer would, because what that means for a developer is just change orders. You're going to be getting change orders from your GC, and they're not just going to bill you on the extra cost. They're going to, that's going to be an opportunity for them to bill you more than the actual contract price, because they already have the job. It's very unlikely that you would pull away at that point if you're already 40%, 50% in with them. It's just very costly to replace a general contractor. So change orders is actually one way that the not so honest GCs use to make extra money.
We get it all the time.
They bid the project low, and then they get you on change orders, right? So imagine when the environment and the economy actually warrants doing that, right?
So they're going to take more advantage on top of that.
Right, they take more advantage of it. So in our case, we have great relationships with suppliers. A lot of them are repeat customers. Some of them that we have a really good relationship with, they've extended millions of dollars to us on interest-free credit, lines of credit, and we only pay them based on like certain milestones. So it's really helpful to be able to bid out the lumber among 3-4 of the largest suppliers in our market, and only get the best price. So at any point in time, that you're getting the best price, and it's helping. It still doesn't get you to your original pro forma number, but it gets you to the place where it's as good as it possibly get given our environment. But the upside of the whole thing is that real estate prices, multifamily, single family, are also rising.
Yes.
And so we're coming out just fine.
That's great. Listen, as long as you plan for it, right? I mean, even things like prices going up by 20%, 30%, 40%, you can't plan for that, but you can underwrite the deal in such a way that that things like that could potentially happen.
Right. Yeah. So building in good contingency in the construction budget to account for those things. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So at this point, do you have a whole team working with you, or is it still, what does that consist of? Meaning, as an entrepreneur, as CEO, how are you dealing with that growth?
We're a pretty strong team at this point. We have an office team and we have a field team. About 15 people work on site day in, day out. So, superintendents, equipment operators, laborers, concrete crew, basically the people are doing the heavy lifting of construction. And then in the office, we have 3 people, including myself, who are, experienced construction managers and project managers, project engineers. Some of our team have great training as architects. Mm-hmm. So even though we're not stamping any drawings, but the combination of skill set and our experience working for large contractors before, Abranova is, has been honestly like the secret sauce to what, being able to do what we do. And then we have 3 other people in the company who are mostly, we're also experimenting with real estate data-driven technologies. So we're developing some platforms, to help us get an upper hand in the acquisition, without getting into the specifics until we launch. We're working on a satellite data-driven platform that basically is geared to help real estate developers in the acquisition stage. So identifying land opportunities when they're off market.
Gotcha.
By analyzing trends of, construction activity in the market, the amount of, trees that are being cleared, demolitions, building permit data, and things like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. No, listen, the upper hand in any industry is data, right? That's for sure. The more data you have, the more power you have, right? So that's awesome that you guys are incorporating that aspect as well, because that is really going to be, maybe that's the Nova aspect of the Abranova, right?
All right, you get it.
Awesome. Well, Aaron, I want to transition now into the latter part of our segment of our episode, which is the final four. These are four questions that I asked to all of our guests. And the first question for you, my friend, is what's the worst job that you ever had?
The worst job I've ever had. Well, honestly, I think for me, given my experience, going to college at Duke, and then after that, I worked for a law general contractor, and then I founded my company. I think the worst job is not really a job, but it's more of, the concept, or what would have been if I had embraced the understanding, or the kind of, it seems to be a commonly embraced notion that the purpose of going to college is mostly career. Like, you go to college so that you can get a job.
Right.
I had almost an existential crisis in college when I realized that most people actually go to college for that purpose. And so
What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you? First of all, I don't think most people go to college for that purpose. Most people go to college because they think that. The people that go to college, right, are going because they think of it as like a passage of rites, so to speak, that you kind of have to do it in order to eventually maybe like some have a career. But I don't mean to interrupt you, Aaron, but seriously, I think the vast majority of people who actually get a degree end up working in something completely different from what
Right.
they ended up doing. So, someone going to vocational school, they're doing that to get a job, right? Someone, and I will say that there is definitely a certain percentage of people like yourself, maybe, that go into it with the right mindset that, I want to work as a doctor, so I'm going to, study pre-med, right, et cetera. But
Right.
I don't know. What tell me more about your existential crisis. What do you?
Well, maybe existential crisis is a big word for a college student, but honestly, that's what it was for me, because I guess, when you go to a very competitive school, and, I get what you're saying, Yona, but our generation has a lot of student debt.
Yeah.
Maybe more than your generation did. And you have to dig really deeply to rationalize why, you're graduating with $200,000 in debt, and your purpose is just, the pursuit of knowledge, right? Like, you need to really, really convince yourself that your purpose is not to pay off those student loans as soon as you graduate.
Well, I think
Which
that's
pretty
the
much
problem.
means getting a job.
Yeah, but no, I think that's really the problem, is that most people don't think about that. Like, I think the majority of people don't even think about that. They think, they're going to go to school to get a job, right? And what do they have to get a job? So that they can pay their bills. Why do they need to pay their bills? Because they have student loan debt. So why are they student? Because they went to college. So it's just like a circle, but no one's really thinking about, well, why are you living at all? Like, what's the purpose of life?
But in my background, I given what I explained to you a little bit about how I was raised, first of all, I never needed to go to school. Like, my parents were not college graduates. They bootstrapped themselves into being successful entrepreneurs. And so I had to define what school meant for me. And it was never, imposed on me. I looked at it as a just like going, just like maybe going to, adhering to your religious duties, like
Right.
pursuit of knowledge and going to school was to me the same thing, right? And so I had associated a much deeper meaning to it. Basically, like, when, to go on a tangent, I don't know if it helps, but like, I learned that Isaac Newton spent a lot more time studying religion than he actually did on science, on, like, physics and math, right? But his religious work was never published. And the rulers that, had control of his work after he died, they kind of separated between his, religiosity and his passion for physics and math as a scientist. And so they separated a world that was one to him. And so to me, it felt the same way when you kind of separate, you know, your life from your pursuit of knowledge. And I don't know. I honestly imagine people sitting under apple trees, contemplating gravity as the reason why I was going to college. And you can imagine going to Duke, and half the people are going to Wall Street to work for Goldman Sachs. It was a blow to my expectations, but I think it was a very important phase of my life. And so the worst job was being in a position where everything around me was structured in that way, and I had to kind of untangle it for myself.
Interesting. Okay, got you. I'm glad. No, I'm following it. I followed it. Okay. Well, that's good.
It's a lot more philosophy than you expected, but
that's great.
Sometimes there are no simple answers to some questions, and I like to give some questions the way they deserve, because they're the world is not a simple place. I don't know what people. Yeah.
That's great. I love that. Probably the best answer I ever got on that question. But the second one, let's see what we do with this one. What's a book you've read that's given you a paradigm shift?
Well, I read a lot, and so it's kind of hard to choose between one and the other. But I'll talk about Real Estate Titans, a book by Erez Cohen, and I have had the pleasure of connecting with the author, and I'm actually going to be hosting a book webinar event with him. But his book is really, really interesting because he goes around interviewing and writing about some of the largest real estate developers around the world, not just in the US. And, he kind of zooms into what makes them great, what drives them, their backgrounds, right? And, looking at different aspects of their lives that makes them exceptional. I think the book, it's really helpful, especially for young real estate professionals. I read this book, in the early phase of my career, and I'm going to be sponsoring this event and giving these books for free to students who are interested in real estate, so they can read it ahead of the webinar. But I think that's one of the great real estate books I've read.
So what was it about it that really made it an impact on you about that book?
There are a lot of lessons in there. The ones that really stand out is, each real estate developer seemed to have, kind of a driving factor that is not real estate related at all. It's not, kind of financial metric or, company goals. There's one of my favorite real estate developers in the book, highlighted in the book, is he's a Brazilian developer, and he is a very charitable man. I think he's worth several $1 billion, but he sees his drive and passion for being a successful developer as a duty, to his community. He's very charitable. He supports a lot of charitable causes in his communities, and that's what gives him joy.
Wow.
And it's amazing to look at it that way, because there's real estate developers are also known to have a lot of ego, and so it's amazing to see that some of the really successful ones are actually very humble, and the reason for their success, or what drives them to be more successful, is actually a very humbling cause, right? Yeah,
that's awesome. That's really great. That's good to hear. There's and I personally know a lot of similar people that are
right,
great, very successful real estate people, but very humble, and people that are extremely charitable. I mean, and they do see it like that, and that's amazing. That I think I know who you're referring to there as the Brazilian,
right.
But there are a lot of similar people who really do feel like an obligation to continue building their businesses in order to continue helping more people. Like the more more deals I can do, the more people I can help, and that's really kind of an incredible model to set.
Right. Yeah.
So third question for you, Abram, if you can think of a skill or talent that you would like to learn,
Honestly, if I was to do it all over again, I would have definitely had pursued an engineering degree, which I did. I should have double majored in economics, and I should have done an MBA and a JD combo degree after that. If I had the luxury of, staying in school for as long as I wanted and prepared myself for what I'm doing right now, I think a combination of, finance, understanding how contracts are structured, basically having the confidence of a lawyer, and the, analytical ability of an engineer in real estate, I think that is, ultimately
you have it all.
Yeah, you would have it all, I think. And I if I was to prepare for my career, that's what I would have done. Now, am I disadvantaged? Maybe. Look, if you want to measure, efficiency by like, this is the absolute advantage and this is the absolute disadvantage, maybe, but like, I'm doing okay. But if I was preparing for this, that's what I would have done. And currently, I'm doing a lot of online, continuous education coursework on financial underwriting, and eventually I would like to do some coursework on legal aspects of things. So life is a continuous learning process. But those are the skills that I really would like to equip myself with long term.
That's great. I mean, in the meantime, obviously you hire good people that can do those things for you.
Exactly. Right.
So there's an advantage to that as well, right? Saving you the time, getting that done. Okay. Well, I'd like to end it off with the fourth and final question for you, which is, what does success mean to you?
To me, success is being able to live the best life I possibly can, and using my God-given opportunities, talent, abilities to create the most impactful legacy I possibly can. And along with founding Abranova Real Estate, I founded the Abranova Foundation. Even though I don't have $1 billion to give away
yet,
nor am I signed up on the giving pledge list, but however much I have, I see it as a duty to give away, because ultimately, especially real estate is a very even if you don't like to have a legacy, you already have a legacy by developing real estate, right? Mm-hmm. The structures that you develop and you build are going to outlive you, and people will know you for that. So you may as well be intentional about having a great legacy as a human being in your community. And that's why, I'm very passionate about real estate, because it gives me so many different opportunities to create, live a meaningful life and create a meaningful legacy.
Very well said. Very well said. Well, I appreciate that. That's a great answer. And it's a great finale to a wonderful conversation. I appreciate the time you spent here. Where can our listeners find you or reach out to you?
Obviously the our website, abranova.com is a place to learn about who we are as a company and what we do. My LinkedIn profile has my number on it and my email, and I'm happy to give that information as well. Yeah, I'm all over the place, mostly LinkedIn, but I'm happy to pass my information for those who want to reach out to me.
Well, that's awesome. We will put that in the show notes. And like I said, it was a wonderful conversation. I appreciate you taking the time today.
Thank you, I appreciate it too. And, looking forward to keep the conversation going.
Awesome. And to all of our listeners, remember, the best advice comes only when you ask. Real quick, I have one question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask you a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message to the whole world is that if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this podcast is out on is that you like my stuff and I'm doing something right. So take a few seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating or review. I would be extremely grateful. Also, I want to hear from you guys. So I want to hear some feedback. If you have any questions for future episodes, please find me on LinkedIn, send me a DM, connection request, Yona Weiss, and I'd love to hear from you.